Welcome to For the Common Good with Juanita, a show where we inform, inspire, and empower our businesses, communities, and people just like you. I'm excited about the show today because we're talking about heal your pain, reclaim your joy. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Well, I have just the right guest to talk to us about that today. And she is the CEO of the Boss Inner Child Counseling, Ingrid Bornia. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She has a bachelor's from Syracuse University, where she studied human behavior, and a master's in social work from Norfolk State University. She's a licensed clinical social worker. And she's trained in a number of types of therapies, and most of all, she challenges her patients to find solutions. Help me welcome her to the show. Ingrid, welcome to the show.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Finally, you're here. I'm so excited about that. I wanted to ask you, Ingrid,
Please.
because you talk about trauma as being your specialty.
Yes, it is. First, let me say I'm very grateful to be here with you. I'm humbled when you were reading and speaking. I thought, wow, this is me. She's talking about me. So thank you for this opportunity to share my story and my position in this world as a therapist. Thank you. So, yes, I am a trauma specialist. I have been for over 20 years. I've been working in the field, and for a long time I've been working with adults. And throughout that course, I have been working indirectly with children. Mm-hmm. And towards this maybe last few years, maybe in the last 5 years, I decided that I want to focus on young girls, teenage girls. And so, believe it or not, I realized that teenage girls have a lot of trauma. And those teenage girls grow up to be women, and many times those women are mothers, and that trauma gets passed down to their children. Mm-hmm. So I thought if I could interrupt that process, maybe we can make the household for many families a lot better. Mm-hmm. And this is where it all began.
So the trauma is passed down from generation to generation.
Yes. So that's the whole point about heal your pain, reclaim your joy.
Break the cycle.
Right, break the cycle.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you so much.
Break the cycle. That is awesome. Now, even the name, Inner Child Counseling.
Yes.
I like that, but tell us more about that name and how that came to be and why that's important.
Okay, well, we all have this inner person, if you will. Sometimes we refer to that as a spirit or energy or a conscious or some kind of internal message that we get along the way that guides us and directs us. Well, the same thing goes for the inner child. If you have an individual who was injured as a young person and those injuries are not resolved and that information is not integrated into that individual's whole being, what happens is that material is suppressed, possibly memorialized inside of the fabrics of our autonomic nervous system. So you'll find that individuals will struggle with anxiety, struggle with depression, and many times they don't even know why. Why am I depressed if things are going so well? I have a good job, I have a family. Why am I anxious? Why am I not in a place of total joy?
Right.
Well, many times it's because there's unresolved trauma, unresolved material that needs to be integrated into the adult. And hopefully with, counseling and therapy, that can take place. And so that's where the inner child process comes along, working it through.
Wow, that's amazing. So you help them to sort of understand those suppressed issues or feelings that they've had, probably, maybe sometimes from childhood, and follow them through their adult life and raising kids and the whole 9 yards.
Right. And it happens, everyone has a narrative, if you will, right? They have a perspective. They have a story for themselves, their journey of why they're where they are, how they got to where they are. And a lot of times that story has some dark spots, some moments that are hurtful, some moments that were scary. It doesn't have to be life or death. It could be something as simple as, a medical emergency. But if it creates an internal message of fear, and the person is consistently worried about that happening again, or it potentially interfering in their future, then you process that, and hopefully it will not present problematic after the fact.
Wow.
So that's the goal. And ultimately, if I can work with young people to help them get past that early on, then they should have a blissful adulthood.
Wow. So, of course, in our country, there's a lot of mental illness, behavior disorders, and things like that. And now COVID comes. And
COVID.
So what have you seen in terms of the patients you're seeing? Has COVID just sort of opened up, the reality that we're here in our country? We do have a lot of mental illness, and COVID hasn't helped that situation.
It has not.
Right.
It is a major contributor. But I know this is going to sound strange, but I'm grateful to COVID. I'll tell you why. COVID has allowed people to realize that something is going on. See, before COVID, everyone was on autopilot, going to work, going to school, doing the, routine. And then here comes COVID, and now you have to quarantine. And you can't do the things you used to do. You can't go to the beach. You can't numb yourself the way you want to, because all the clubs, all the bars, all of these social settings were now closed. And so you had to deal with yourself. And you had to accept that there was something going on. And how do you do that? Because everyone around you is going through pretty much the same thing. So you call a therapist and you say, COVID is stressing me out. I say, is it COVID really? Let's do a couple of battery tests. Let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about where you were and where you are. And what is the difference? And can you appreciate some of what's going on today? Is there things about you today that you want to change? If so, what is that? What does that look like? So I kind of appreciate COVID because it forces the person to look in the mirror, to deal with what's really going on. And I think we might have interrupted a long-term problem because we addressed it.
We're certainly bringing things to light. COVID has certainly sort of pulled back the veil.
Pulled back the veil, yes.
Definitely. Oh, this is really good. Oh, wow. We're going to take a short break now, and we're going to be right back. You've been listening to For the Common Good with Juanita. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere.
Okay.
Well, welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. And today we're talking about Heal Your Pain, Reclaim Your Joy. And we're talking to the CEO of Boss Inner Child Counseling, Ingrid Bornia. Ingrid's a licensed clinical social worker. And I wanted to ask you, Ingrid, because you said you connect with your patients. You have a personal connection with your patients. And some of that is because of your story.
Yes, indeed.
And so how does that help you connect with your patients?
I'm so glad you asked that. This is a mission focus. This is very personal. It is something that I am really moved by. I am the young girl that was in the detention center, that was in the group home, that had a lot of challenges growing up and really didn't have any resources or any outlets to be able to ventilate, to be able to grow from any changes, challenges, or even mistakes. And it took me to actually be in a detention facility, and to be, isolated from my family, from my sense of comfort, to realize that I needed to adapt, and I needed to grow, and I needed to learn, and I definitely needed to change. And unfortunately, it took these these hardships to get me to that place. And I thought, if I could spread the word to teenagers who face similar challenges, that maybe I could be a model representation of where they can go and who they can turn to, as opposed to surrendering to some of the negative attractions that are in the community, and sometimes they're not to the betterment of our development. So I reach out to the community centers. I communicate with the high school social workers. I am very active. I have events going on where I literally put in place certain things that are enticing to a young girl. So I have double dutch contests. I have yoga, where these young people learn how to do yoga. They attend hot yoga. And I do that because I didn't have that. And when I started engaging in those type of positive activities, physical fitness, exercise, meditation, relaxation, journaling, which is why I wrote this journal for young people. It was then, as an adult, that I thought, wow, if I would have had that, I probably wouldn't have been in the detention center. I probably wouldn't have been in the group home. So that is the plug, if you will, that started all of this.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Incredible story.
Thank you.
So I know someone watching the show might go, I'm having some difficulty, but when would I know when to contact a counselor? How would I know when is the time to say, I need to talk to somebody?
Oh, wow. If I may, you'll know. You know, because your body tells you so. Your mind is telling you so. You're having problems in almost every setting of your life. You're either having legal problems, relational problems, you're doing things that you know are not good for your body, you're avoiding subjects, events, social encounters with family and friends, and sometimes you want to die. And if it gets to that point, or even before then, you reach out. You call a hotline, a suicide prevention hotline. And if I can, the number is 1-800-273-8255. You call that number, you call me, you call someone. You reach out, and if you don't have a therapist in mind, call a friend. Process. But avoiding isolation, drugs and alcohol, and suicide, that is not the answer, because then there's never a recovery. It's just worsening the material that you're dealing with which really, if you play it all out, it's memory material, emotional material. It's not in the here and now. It's just in here.
It's that record playing over and over and over again.
So let's put it out. Let's write about it. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. Let's work it through. So that way, tomorrow when the sun comes out, you could plan a great day. That's the goal.
Wow, that's the goal. Now, if you have a friend who's experiencing some issues, how do you reach out to that friend? I mean, they're a friend. You don't want to alienate them, but how would you reach out to them when you know that they're suffering and they're not getting any help, but you want to try to help them, but you don't want to drive them away either?
Right.
That's difficult.
Right. Well, I'll give you a scenario. I have a friend who caught COVID and was very sick. And after she was released from the hospital, she felt very alone. She felt guilty for not getting the vaccine in time. She felt completely isolated because no one could come and care for her, and she still had to have an oxygen tank with her in the home. So she had to monitor her O2 level. So all I could do was call her. All I could do was order DoorDash to her house and send her some food. All I could do is say, hey, I love you. I'm here for you. And that's an extreme case scenario, but something as simple as sending someone a gift or ordering them DoorDash, I mean, you're saying, I care about you. I was thinking about you today. I want to order you some, dinner. Can I do that? And people appreciate that. That's a friend.
Wow. So even the small things can make the most difference.
I agree.
Wow.
I agree. That's my approach. Some people knock on the door and they show up. Whatever it takes to keep your friend alive, whatever it takes so that your friend knows that they're not alone, do what works for you, because any outreach is better than no outreach at all.
Do you hear that? You are not alone. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break and we're going to be back. We're going to hear more. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. We're talking to Ingrid Bornia, who is the CEO of Boss Inner Child Counseling. I wanted to ask you, Ingrid, I read somewhere that you have a way of doing non-traditional things. Of course, you do all the traditional therapies, but the non-traditional things, like a person who fears crowds or has a phobia of crowds,
Yes.
taking them to a busy shopping center or store on a Saturday. Wow.
Okay, so that is called exposure therapy, and it is one of the most intensive form of treatment. And we do that in therapy when we've tried all of the less intensive approaches. And it really does demonstrate that a person is willing to work on some of their anxiety and some of their triggers. So if a person is afraid of crowds and they are, distracted very easily by noise,
Right.
I may say, okay, on the first of the month, I just want you to go right to the center of Walmart and just stand there and just time yourself. Give me like a minute or two and identify, if you can, how you feel. Think of your what we call subjective units of distress. From 0 to 100, how frantic are you? And what I find is that the person is like, before they go, it's, oh my God, I'm gonna faint. They're gonna have to call 911. I won't be able to do it. And when they're there, they're like, they come back and report it was like a 20 or 30. It wasn't that bad. Exactly. Sometimes we have these messages that we tell ourselves that things are going to be far worse than what they really are. Remember, they are challenging old memory and they're trying to bring it into the present. When they go to these places, it's nothing like the initial event that caused the anxiety. So in a way, it's an approach that's helpful, but absolutely one that is provoking tremendous anxiety at the onset of the treatment.
Wow.
So, I'm very careful with who gets that type of care.
Right. You got to be very selective. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
But I'm fond of it nonetheless. I really am. I think it works.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy.
Okay, so I know you must have a lot of success stories. People you've seen, and you've
Oh,
seen
my
how they
goodness.
evolve over the years. Tell us about some of your success stories.
I have wonderful results. And, I tell you that I have a young lady who I'm very proud of. She was struggling with a lot of triggers. Crowds, noise, men.
Men were a trigger?
Men were a trigger. That means a professor, a man driving next to her in a car. It could be any man. because she was sexually assaulted by a man. And with the therapy that we did, I incorporated meditation, yoga. She was required to do CrossFit, which she did. She became physically strong.
Yes.
She became emotionally strong. So those triggers became less and less. Because why? She felt like she can handle herself. The injury happened when she was a child.
Wow.
She was sexually assaulted as a child. So of course she was physically unable to protect herself. She was not even mature enough to understand what was happening. So we were able to process that in itself. And then to kind of massage that if you work out, you get physically fit, and then you process the fact that this happened when you were just a little person, now you feel empowered, right? Because what she says, it will never happen again. So now this young lady has graduated college. She's in graduate school. She's working for a major organization. She's making more money than most people I know. And she is still just 22. Yes. So I know that this therapy works. But she did show up every week. And then on top of that, did attend the yoga, did attend the fitness, did the homework.
She put in the work. Yeah.
Indeed, she put in the work.
Put in the work.
And it takes work. It takes work. You know, if you
does.
want to heal, you have to work towards healing. Period.
What's next for you, Ingrid?
Oh, good question.
I know. What's your vision for
Oh,
the
what's
future?
my vision for the future? I want to share this knowledge. I want to be recognized as a person who is literally doing this from the heart. I want people to know that I survived and they can too. Because I know what it feels like to want to end your life because you feel so alone and so afraid. But I also know what it feels like to recover from that.
Oh, yes.
To heal. And that's why I smile. And that's why I wear my Boss Girl earrings. I broadcast Boss Girl everywhere because you have to boss up. That little girl inside you has to become the boss. It's your life. It's not anyone else's. It's up to no one else but you. So it's time to boss up. So I do it with pride.
I love that.
Oh, thank you.
It's time to boss up.
Thank you. Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you do, because you're helping so many people, and especially young girls, and you're focusing a lot on young girls, the struggle. And we have to do that. We have to invest in our young people.
Thank you. That's it. That's the message. We have to invest in our young people. We have to.
Thank you for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you.
And thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to For the Common Good with Juanita. We'll see you next time.